Only old people are on Facebook. I'm too old. I don't understand the purpose of Twitter. But you're a writer, and many of you are actually trying to publish something. A book, series of poems, an audio drama. So, can you afford to be a generational writer? Let's talk about that in episode 78 of Horrible Writing. That will never work. You can't publish that. Seriously? Don't. Oh my God, that's everything. That's bad. You probably should find other hobbies. You ever learn how to spell? Stop. Be happy. You don't bother. I've seen better people. Do you really want to do that? And grow. My third grade. Give it up. Welcome to Horrible Writing, the rawest, most candid, in-your-face writing show on the interwebs because none of us have time to suck. Let's do this. One of the things I hear constantly from talking with other writers is this instinctive, immediate reaction, strong reaction to fill in the blank social media platform. Look, if you've been listening to this show for more than a few episodes, you know, especially lately, I'm not the biggest fan of social media. And I telework. I spend my entire adult life alone, except for when my wife is home. Even you introverts who think that sounds like heaven, it ain't easy. It's tough to not have interaction with human beings, so you fill that evolutionary need by getting online and chatting with other people. Now, fortunately for me, I feel I have a strong writer community around me, whether it's the folks who follow me on Twitter and who I follow on Twitter, because there are folks out there that I really enjoy, or if it's that community on Horrible Writing Writer Support Group on Facebook, where we get to commiserate, celebrate, help each other out. And if you're listening to this show and you use Facebook even occasionally, and you're not joining us, join us. Even if you never do anything else on Facebook, pop in once a week, once a month, and see what's going on that page. Bunch of wonderful people, authors, writers, poets, audio dramatists in that group. But there is a very practical reason to be on social media besides your own personal needs. Of course, all of this depends on what your ultimate goals are. Regardless of who you are, where you're at in your writing, it's never too early to start thinking about what you want out of this. I say this in jest, and it comes across much better if we were in person talking over a beer or my new favorite drink, Long Island iced teas. But it's never too soon to have a 5-year plan. If you don't have a 5-year plan right now as you're listening to this episode, jot it down on something. A piece of paper near you, a napkin that's on the table, your partner's forehead. I don't care. Write it down. You need to get yourself a 5-year plan. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? So you can start understanding and strategically building toward getting to that place. But 5 years from now, I doubt anyone listening to this show by episode 78 isn't serious about doing something with what they create. You're not just writing to write. That's always with the caveat that you're listening to this episode and it's not your first one. You may have tripped across this podcast and are listening to this first, so you may disagree with that. But longtime listeners, I will have scared anybody away who's merely just a hobbyist of this show. You're getting something from this, and you have bigger aims than just, air quotes, writing. Not that there's anything wrong with just writing. Not at all. But for the purposes of this conversation and the brand and vision, if you will, of this show, if you're sticking around, you have bigger aims. So you need to be on social media. You have to be. Now, this is where people may get rubbed wrong. And again, every single episode where I do these, preach from the mountaintop segments, I'm not doing this to be antagonistic, to fan the flames of war, to piss you off. That's not why I do this. I do this because, as I've told people recently in my life, I wish somebody had been there for me in my 20s to kick me in the shin. Seriously. And say, Paul, what the hell are you doing? You're absolutely miserable in the military, doing a job you absolutely hate. Ever since you were a little kid, you've always wanted to write. As a teenager, when other teens were worried about girls and finding cheap Coors Light and pot and speed and what all those things that kids in high school did back in the day when I was in the day. I was screwing off, don't get me wrong, but I was writing when I couldn't go hang out with friends because I had very strict parents. When I couldn't hang out with friends, I was making my own newspaper. I was writing all the segments and coming up with pen names so it didn't look like the newspaper only hired one writer. I was a dork, but I loved writing. And in my 20s, I lost sight of that because of life. I fell into this lie that you have to be certain things in life. And now in my 40s, I regret that. Nobody ever kicked me in the shins and said, what do you really love? Okay, then go do that thing, because this is it. You get one life, you get one journey on this rock, and then that's it. So why not do something you love? And for me, it's writing. And as for many of you, it's writing. So again, all of these messages come from the bottom of my heart and from the fact that I love that you love writing. I love that you're part of this family. I love you for what you bring into my life. You all don't know how much happier I am because of you. And I believe in empowerment through candor. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to give you platitudes, try to pull the wool over your eyes, dance around the bush, serve you up a plate of bullshit, warm and steamy. Not going to happen. You need to get on social media. Last year at NorwestCon, I talked to a writer who I really respect and who is established, trade and indie. This writer is well down the road that I want to get to. I mean, I see them out my windshield. They're just a little blip up on the horizon. They're so far ahead of me. I use people like that as motivation when I'm feeling lazy. And this person told me they don't get Twitter. They're too old. They don't understand the purpose of it, and they hate being on it. Well, I hate being on it too, especially lately. I used to really enjoy it, but I found through algorithms or whatever, I just need to maybe wipe all of my people I'm following and start over again. Well, except for some of you, but beyond that, maybe that's what I need to do, but this isn't about me. This is about you. I hate it too. I don't enjoy it. I enjoy little blips of it when I get a tweet from somebody I really respect and like, or when I feel like I'm contributing to the world in a positive way. But that's very minimal, and I can do that in other avenues in my life. The only reason I really go out on Twitter anymore is to keep brand awareness up. Yes, I do enjoy interacting with the cool people out there. I do. But the benefit cost of those interactions doesn't come out in the black. It's very definite in the red in financial speak. It is an emotional loss, if you will, getting on Twitter. I do it because I have to maintain a presence and a brand, because I don't plan on stopping. I have 3 books out now. I have 3 that I'm aiming. I still think I can do it this year to publish 3 more. So by the end of 2019, so from mid 2018 to the end of 2019, I'll have published 6 times. 7 if you include my short story that's out there. I may not make it, but that's still the aim, and I feel like I'm still on target for it. So I need a brand. So I get out there on Twitter and do it. I've also talk to way too many younger writers. Yes, those of you in your 20s, I'm looking at you right now, especially those of you in your earlier to mid-20s. I know old people hang out on Facebook. Nobody uses it anymore. Well, guess what? Newsflash, you're not a nobody. You're either an author, you're a writer, you're an aspiring author, you're a poet, you're an audio dramatist, whatever you are. You're a creative. You're creating art with the purpose, again, context of putting it out there in the world, or you would not be listening to the 78th episode of this podcast. You can't afford to not be on Facebook. So a lot of people will take these kind of comments and they won't actively listen. They'll already be formulating their response and their justifications, excuses for why they're not on these social media platforms. But you need to be. There are 2.3 billion. I didn't mispronounce that. I didn't mean to say million. I meant to say billion active users of Facebook. 1.15 billion of those are daily users. 1.15 billion are on Facebook every single day. Most common demographic is 25 to 34-year-olds. There are 5 profiles built on Facebook every second of every day, of every week, of every month, of every year. 76% of users of Facebook are female. I need to hit that one again for those of you who hate Facebook a lot. Again, I'm not a fan of Facebook, but I need you to put your business cap on if you want to reach readers of your fiction or listeners of your fiction. 76% of users on Facebook are female. Why do I hit that again? Simple logic. Who buys books? 77% of book buyers are female. If you're not on Facebook and you want to move books, you just keep cutting your nose off to spite your face. I don't care, it's for old people. Okay, then be okay with missing the vast majority of readers and book buyers. Just be okay with that. If you are okay saying, Paul, I don't care about 3/4 of the book buying market, good. Now, some of you want to be all intellectual and say, Paul, your logic is flawed. Yes, there are other ways to reach those buyers. I do realize that. But this isn't a world where you can differentiate yourself simply by throwing ads in people's faces. You can try. It's going to cost you, but there are other smarter ways to do it that don't have to cost a lot, i.e. being part of these communities. So again, think about the stats behind it, right? 1 in 5 page views on the internet, across the internet, is occurring via Facebook. 1 in 5. 42% of marketers, according to Inbound Marketing, report that Facebook is critical or very important to their business. Now, what about Twitter? Those of you who are too old, don't get Twitter. Again, this isn't a book-selling mechanism. That's not the purpose of Facebook or Twitter. It's about brand extension. Who are you? How can you make people care about you? Well, you can do that by interacting. 321 million people on Twitter, which interestingly is down 2% from 2018. Things that make you go, 80% are mobile, 100 million daily users. 79% of the users of Twitter come from outside the U.S. Those of you who want a global market for your books. Just saying. 18 to 29-year-olds make up 37% of Twitter users, which is the largest demographic out there. So the presence is there. You need to have your presence there. And I have a further reason why I think that's so. Seth Godin is a marketing genius. And recently he was talking about, books and authorship and book selling. And he was talking about, trying to address this self-defeatism that we have and what measures success and why he believes that things like, the USA Today and the New York Times bestsellers lists are shams. He doesn't put any weight into them. In that discussion that he was having, he mentioned the astounding fact, which blew my mind, that if you were one of the most successful authors at any given time, any week during the year, if you were at the top of that list, selling the top number of books, you were still reaching only about 2% of the U.S. population. Crazy, right? Because most people don't read, and then we don't read across every genre. Most of us have our genre or two, maybe three genres that we read in. So at any given time, the hot book on the market is selling to 2% of the U.S. population. If you extrapolate that out, about those populations I mentioned earlier between Twitter and Facebook, that's 2% of those populations is still 6.5 million people on Twitter and 46 million people on Facebook. 46 million people that you could be building a brand toward. You have to be out on these places to build that brand, to build those relationships. It's about relationship marketing. You don't go to Facebook and to Twitter to sell. You go there to be a human being who also happens to be an author, poet, audio dramatist, whatever you are, however you like to categorize yourself. I want to give you one more set of stats before I move into my last little bit here. My own personal experience. Because I believe, and I do this too, that when I trust somebody, I listen to what they have to say and their experiences with more weight than I do for other people. And I've played around with Amazon ads. I'm still playing around, though I'm still distracted by all the things I need to take off my plate before I really deep dive, which is another goal that I have this year. But through my own experience, I have lots of failures trying these ads, and I have tried ads on Facebook before without much success. But there is something that I did try that worked really well, so I share it with you all. Anecdotally, you can't base your entire career on this, but to give you a little bit of insight. So the first book that I'm going to publish this year is called The Scales. It's a horror novel. Teen girl sees monster terrorizes her and all the town, and epic battle ensues kind of book. It's based off of my first audio drama called Atheist Apocalypse. Not on that audio drama, but on that world. I took that world that I built for that podcast. I thought it would be neat to build a horror story around it and some of its characters, so I did. Doing that audio drama, I wrote an end of season story, a short story, and it's kind of like a parallel story to the Atheist Apocalypse story. And I created a character that I really fell in love with, so I wrote a short story around him and gave it to them as an end of season special. Well, and then I decided, hey, I'm going to try this book thing. Let me fix that, make it a short story, put it up on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, put it wide for the world for free. And I did. And it did all right. But here's what I want you to hear and you to think about, especially those of you who are anti-Facebook, because it's for old people or you hate it or whatever. As an author who wants to move books, you have to be there and you have to start building a following. And here's why. My example means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of life. But I took The Plant, which you can go check out on any place on the internets for free, and I made an ad for it. And I suck at ad building. It's something I've got to focus on. But I said, screw it, I'm going to try this. And I went to my public image or public brand Facebook page, which you can find at Author Paul Sading, by the way. So come join me over there. And I built that ad. I made sure I linked it to the Amazon page for the book, even though it's wide. I just wanted to test out what the ad would do, how well it would convert. So The plant was already out there wide. And before I took out this ad, now I took out an ad for 7 days. The budget was $10. Keep that in mind. 7 days for $10. Not $10 a day for 7 days. For that 7-day period, I paid $10. So an average of $1.82 a day. I don't even know if that's close. Somewhere in that ballpark. Less than $2 a day for this ad. Now, that ad got thousands and thousands of impressions. The book, the short story itself, which we all know who've done this, short stories don't move on Amazon. The short story had before I launched that ad, it had an average rating in horror short stories category of 127. So position number 127 is where the plant averaged before this ad. Since taking that ad out back in February, the average rank for the same story on Amazon in that same category is number 41. And over the month and a half since, the momentum has continued to build. So it jumped up significantly, and it keeps doing better up to the date of recording. So I'm sitting here on March 13th, and in the days in March, so the 2 weeks of March 2019, the average rank in horror short stories, free of course, on Amazon, is rank 11. So before I took out that $10 ad, I was right around 127. And if I look at the last 2 weeks, I've been averaging position number 11, and I've gotten up into position number 4. That's the highest it has achieved since I did this little experiment. That means the plant is constantly, for March, and it was through much of February, constantly on the first page of Amazon's free horror short stories. So anybody who's a geek about horror stories, wants to read something quick, is looking for a horror story or a new horror author that they've never come across, they constantly see my story there. All because of one ad for $1.82 a day, so not even a full cup of coffee at Starbucks. I have put the plant on the front page of Amazon's free short horror stories, and that bleed through has come over into my books, my other books, which is exactly what I wanted. Folks, you can't not be on Facebook. You can't not be on Twitter. You can't not be on Instagram and Reddit. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have to do all of these things, but you have to pick some of them and do them. And you have to engage genuinely and authentically with people. People who come to like you will support you. Even if they can't buy a thing, they can tag a friend in one of your book ads. They can interact with you on Twitter and help you because they just like you. They don't like your genre, but they like you. They can help other people find you by retweeting things or involving you in Twitter games. Twitter is big on that. You know, hey, what are your 3 favorite movies? Tag 2 friends, tag 5 friends, and you start getting tagged in these things. This is all about building that fan base. It's about building that tribe of people who will support you and who believe in you. And it doesn't take much. A couple interactions a week. More if you want to. Pick 1 or 2 platforms. Doesn't have to be Facebook and Twitter. Again, Paul's opinion, you really are going to lose out if you don't involve yourself in Facebook, no matter how much you hate it. That's just what I feel about it. But beyond that, I would say it has to be Facebook and then pick one of the other ones. I think Instagram works well. I need to get better at Instagramming instead of Twitter, maybe, for those of you who don't want the toxicity of Twitter, which it can be far too often. So, again, for what it's worth, I think you need to be out there. I think you shoot yourself in the foot if you're not. I do have programming notes about the future of this show, but before I get to that, I wanted to thank a couple people real quick. I wanted to thank Jamie first. Jamie wrote an email to me and just basically nice short email thanking me for taking my time to write this or do this podcast, and that Jamie really appreciates me. Folks, I can't tell you how much it means when I hear stuff like that. It really, truly, for you to, and this came in from the website. So Jamie went over to the website, found the contact information, and made sure that they sent me that. And it means an absolute shit ton to me when people take the time to do that, even if it's a brief and succinct one, to let me know that this show is making a difference for them. Speaking of which, last night, in fact, I got an absolutely humbling email from somebody named Alexandra. And I'm not going to give anything out more than that, but Alexandra has been listening since episode 1. Well, you're brave. And it's taken Alexandra months to write. And Alexandra goes on to say that she hasn't, I'm going to assume you prefer she, Alexandra. Please forgive me if I'm misspeaking. But she hasn't written since high school and started again after finding the show, getting some short fiction in, constantly writing ideas, which we all know what that feels like, right? That high of getting, once that creative door opens, it just floods in, doesn't it? And Alexandra thanked me in this show because it was the kick in the ass that she needed to get going and start writing things again. And Alexandra shared some of the struggles of what she goes through and what she's been through, what she's going through, that kind of, I don't want to say inhibit, but probably does inhibit her to be able to invest like she wants to. But in her email that she shared, it was very evident that nothing's going to stop her now. And I think that's absolutely beautiful, right? That is absolutely beautiful. She mentioned that the show has rekindled her love for writing and pushed her down a path I need to be on. Listen to what I said at the beginning of this episode and listen to what Alexandra said. Rekindled my love and pushed me down the path I need to be on. We do these things because we have to. I write, therefore I am, just like my shirt over on TeePublic says. Yes, I have a store on TeePublic, by the way, but I don't ever do much on it. Another one of those things I don't have time for right now. But you know what this feels like when you create. It's a beautiful feeling. Non-creatives are totally jelly of us that we get to live this. If you have that drive that you want other people to hear your creations, do what I'm begging you to do in this episode. Get yourself out there on social media platforms. Pick 2. One of them, I swear, until things change, has to be Facebook, no matter how much you hate that. And follow that path that you need to be on. I want to thank Jamie and Alexandra both for those emails this week. You all lifted me up and re-energized me in measures that I can't get into because this is already a ridiculously long episode, but I may one day. But you both were the kick in the ass that I needed this week. And that's what a writing community is all about. So thank you. Those of you who haven't joined us, make sure you join us over on the Horrible Writing Writer Support Group on Facebook when you come join it. It's an absolutely wonderful, healthy place. There is no spammy crap, none of that stuff, and it's a very healthy place with a bunch of supportive people. So come join us. I'd love to hang out with you there. Now, I did hint at the fact that there's going to be some changes, and that is true. In the near future, you're not going to see a whole lot of interviews from me. I hope that doesn't scare you away from the show. It's not that I don't love them. I do. It's just that finding writers, doing all that pre-interview coordination with them, etc., is very taxing. And I've realized that I'm behind schedule on my publishing goals. The scales, the first book of the year, is just off to the editor. She's got to do her thing, turn it back to me, and I've got to fix the things that she tells me to fix that I agree with. So it's going to be a minute yet before that comes out. And I realized that doing the logistical aspects of this podcast plus Diary of a Madman, just coming off of Who Killed Julie audio drama, right? It really, really, truly slowed me down and put me behind. So I've had to focus and kind of rearrange some of my priorities. So I'm still going to do the interviews. I still have a couple writers who I've been working with that I'm going to follow up with, but I'm going to throttle back, but I'm going to still do them. They just won't come every other episode. However, there are 2 new segments coming to the show that will involve other writers. One of them was given to me by a writer in the Horrible Writing Writer Support Group on Facebook. Her name is Dawn. She asked me if I would take up the challenge to do a segment. She thought it would be really cool. I agree with her. She's going to be the first guest, and I'll share more about that when we actually do it. It's not going to stop with Dawn. I don't know what kind of reaction you all will have. I'm very interested to see it. I think it works. I think it's wonderful. And we will do it, and then I will put a call out to the rest of you to see what you think, and we'll go from there. And then the second segment, if you're not in the Horrible Writing Writer Support Group on Facebook, you're not going to know about it, and I'm going to keep it secret until it airs. But I've got a couple writers over there that are going to be involved in the initial one, and then we'll go from there. I think this second segment is going to be a lot of fun, and it's not going to be a lot of work that's going to distract me from publishing, which is my goal. Remember, in this show, I've always told you, Paulie don't play when it comes to publishing. It's what I want to do. I love this community. I love this show. I love you all, but I can't let it get in the way of my actual writing goals. It has, so I've had to kind of readjust, but nothing big is going to change. With all of that being said, I hope this has been helpful to you. I truly mean for it to be, even if it's not necessarily something you want to hear. I'm going to switch away from the public version of the show and go over to the Patreon exclusive for this episode, where I talk about shoulding on other people's work. If you are a patron, make sure you go over to Patreon and look at that feed so you can get the extended version of this episode. Remember, on Patreon, for patrons, there is an RSS feed that you can put into your podcatcher, so it will automatically draw episodes as long as you're a patron. And it'll download them right to your, whether it's you listen on your phone or whatever other device. So make sure you're checking that out. But we're going to get over to the Patreon exclusive part of this episode. For everyone else, please go leave a rating and review for the show. They're doing well now. I still need a lot more of them, though. Where is everybody? There's a ton of you listening. I want a ton of you leaving reviews. Hey, I'm not going to lie to you all. I can't lie, right? So I would love to see your reviews and your ratings over there. Thank you. Of course, if you want more information about me, the audio dramas, how you can support the show, just go over to paulsading.com. Follow the show on Twitter at Writing Horrible, or where you're going to find me, because I pop onto that Twitter account, post something real quick, and disappear. But if you want to find me, at Paul Sading, of course, author Paul Sading on Facebook, and the Horrible Writing Writer Support Group on Facebook. Until next time, keep being epic. This has been Horrible Writing, and hopefully after this episode, you suck less than you did at the beginning. I am Paul Sading, your host extraordinaire. You can find me over on the Twitterverse at Writing Horrible, and over at paulsading.com/horrible-writing. Until next time, suck less.